Hey everyone, welcome back to the Finance Things in Life. My name is Matt. I'm here with Anthony, and we are from the Pitti Group Wealth Management. And today we are going to be talking about protecting your assets from cyber criminals.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big topic lately. When I say lately, probably over the last 5 to 10 years.
Might even be longer than that.
Since the internet came out and you had your statements online. Protecting your assets from people that are trying to take money from you. Having strong passwords, making sure you don't have your passwords readily available or written down or just easy to hack. There's a lot of things to consider, especially this day and age. These cyber attacks are getting more and more sophisticated. So coming up with ways to protect yourself and to protect your assets.
Yeah, I think especially with AI now and everything else, and we can kind of get into those details. But I think gone are the days where you would get the email from some guy that was a prince in a country in Africa, and he had a bunch of rubies for you if you give your wiring instructions, and they can transfer the $1 billion and whatever.
Yeah, just sitting on a pile of cash.
Right.
Please help me.
Right. So, believe it or not, when I was in college, I was at the bar one night, and the bartender was somebody that had fallen for swear. And he was heartbroken over it. He really
he thought he came into about $1 billion.
But that was, but kind of fast forward, that was, the original targets, right? And not a lot of people knew about those kind of attacks, so he probably thought it was legit. And now fast forward 20 25 years later, now these attacks are just you're becoming different, more sophisticated, especially with AI. So.
Yeah, I actually, now you reminded me of I got an email from a cousin of ours that they were stuck in a foreign country, and they needed me to wire money to them to get home because they had their credit card stolen.
Yeah.
So someone had hacked his email and basically emailed everyone in his email list saying that he was stuck in some country.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Well, remember Grandpa got a call.
That I had gotten in a car accident.
Yeah, you got in a car accident, right? And that he needed to wire money.
Yeah.
And so luckily, he still had his wits about him, and had called, our dad, and was like, "Was Anthony in a car accident?" And my, dad's like, "No, what are you talking about? He's right here."
I completely forgot about that. That's wild.
So I mean, to think of it though, like these attacks are becoming so frequent that we forget about. I mean, those are kind of big things to happen,
right?
And we kind of forget about them,
right,
that quickly. So
yeah,
FBI annual internet crime report from 2024, 860,000, almost 860,000 complaints, which resulted in $16 billion in losses in 2024, which the dollar amount. So I think the reports were actually down a little bit from 2023, but the amount, the 16 billion, the 16 billion was actually up about 33% from the year before, which is, so maybe there's less crime, but they're getting more money.
Business is booming.
Right. But yeah, it's just wild. So yeah, maybe we can kind of talk about some of the things you can do, or we can do to kind of protect yourself from some of these crimes.
Yeah, I know at least from our experience, being in the finance industry, you have to be up to date with some of the things that are going on as far as cybersecurity goes. We deal with money every day, so making sure that our clients know that their information is secure. So, when we get an email for someone wants to process a money transaction, and we can't process that just from the email. We have to call them and say, "Hey, did you send me this?" Have a verbal confirmation. And then we also have a list of information in our CRM, personal stuff, just to say verify who it is. So we get a call from someone that we're not familiar with. We can verify their information, say, what's your dog's or your pet's name, or or what's the street that you grew up on. Now that I think about it, this one bothers me really bad, and I want to put it out there. You ever look on Facebook where it'll be a post that says, hey, what was the street you grew up on? Or what was your first dog's name or first pet's name?
Yeah,
and
what's
your
sibling's middle name?
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone writes in on this Facebook post, and there's like 98,000 comments. That's how you get hacked.
Oh, yeah. I screenshot those all the time and use that information.
A buddy of mine, his mom writes these all the time, and I always comment, please stop posting these.
Well, and the thing is, it's your buddy's mom, and that's the target. So that older generation that either don't know any better, or they're not thinking, or maybe they have some cognitive decline. And those are the targets of these cyber criminals. It's like,
the people that didn't grow up with the internet and don't know that there's people out there using this to take advantage of you.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So kind of getting back to some of the things that we do, instead of using the last 4 of your social security number when we try to verify a client, maybe we're using the first 5, because the first 5 you typically don't know. Usually those are the ones that are,
to think
blacked
about
out. Or those specific questions that, maybe nobody would know, like the dog's name and things like that. So there are ways to kind of protect yourself with your advisor to kind of screen, instead of just using the last 4 of your social or your address, which is readily available.
Yeah, and then there's some personal things that you can do as well. I know last year, I'm pretty diligent with looking over my credit card statements. And last year I was just scrolling through my phone at night, the one thing you're not supposed to do. And notice I had a bunch of charges on my credit card, and they were airfare in India. And I was like, well, I don't remember going there recently.
Right.
So I scrolled through, and I actually, my credit card company didn't even reach out to me, which I thought was shocking. Yeah, about $4,000 worth of charges of airfare, and one was Air Canada. So some international flights. So just staying diligent in what you're spending money on to make sure you're not being, 1, double charged, 2, having your credit card hacked or stolen. Is another thing that you can just do on your own time to make sure that you're staying diligent.
Yeah. I had an issue with airfare as well. My credit card getting hacked to use for flights internationally. But another thing, someone was able to hack into my bank account. Somehow, I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't get any notifications. They put in wiring instructions, wired money out of my account, and then paid off their Discover bank account.
So they're paying off their debts.
They're paying off their debt.
Well, they're financially responsible.
Right. So, but I wasn't notified by my bank. The only reason I came across it was because, logging into your account, you saw a wire out. I'm like, what is that from? But yeah, so contacted the bank. They were like, oh, this happens all the time. Basically, they were able to bring them. They didn't get the money back, but they, refunded me the wire. And but yeah, a lot of the times these criminals, there's no charges. They're so hard. There's so many of them that oftentimes you can file a police report, but they kind of get away scot-free.
That's too bad. One thing that we've been talking about recently, at least again on our end, changing up your passwords to be a little more complicated than password 123 exclamation point. Lately we've been doing passwords that are not either a name or a familiar word or anything that has to do with your date of birth, anything along those lines. Try to keep it as random as possible. And I know it's difficult to remember all of those passwords, but if you can have a place where you can securely have it stored, or written down in your office at home, something along those lines, just to keep it a little more complicated to figure out. We were just watching a video last week on some cybersecurity, and what was it, out of couldn't remember the amount of passwords, but it took AI under a minute to unlock 65% of the passwords that they were looking through.
That's wild.
Under a minute. So I imagine, depending on how complicated your password is, give it a few minutes, it's probably going to figure it out.
Right.
So just keeping those random, do yourself the service and trying to remember them. I know it's a lot easier to come up with an easier password. Your favorite sports team and your favorite number, but I would try to keep
favorite child.
Favorite child, it might be a little more difficult. Just try to keep it as random as possible.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of with AI now is that the voice recognition. So now they can kind of manipulate the voice to sound like somebody else. So you may think you're talking to, you may even think you're talking to your child, and it's not them, it's AI, impersonating them. So the technology is out of control.
I don't even answer the phone if it's a random number. I do not say, hello, this is Anthony.
Right.
I just say hi.
Yeah.
Or just leave it blank and let them answer first.
Well, now they have some apps, or sometimes even depending on what phone company you're with, they'll have like the automated message come up.
Yep.
So then they have to start talking.
Google has that.
Yeah, so you can find out who it is and whether you want to answer it or not. So that's another way to kind of protect yourself. But getting back to these cyber criminals and who they're targeting, is generally the older population, that are having that cognitive decline. So just another quick story. We had a client that we were working with, and she found out that her parents, mostly her dad, was wiring money to somebody random on a monthly basis. So what happened was he received a phone call. The guy on the other line was friendly, just started kind of shooting the shit. And we can say shit, right?
I guess we can.
Yeah. And essentially became friends with him, gained his trust.
Oh, jeez.
And was telling him that he was in the military or he worked within the government. Gained his trust and then started, talking about finances and saying that he was working on something and he needed him to wire him money. And this was a long process. It wasn't something that happened over one conversation. It was having, multiple conversations over weeks. And essentially, once that trust was formed, he then started wiring him money. The bank didn't question it because it was coming from the client. So it wasn't someone hacking in. It was the client requesting the wire. They didn't question on where it was going or who it was going to. Starts wiring tens of thousands of dollars on a monthly basis to this guy. When he was confronted by his daughter, who was like, Dad, who are you sending this to? He then got defensive with the cognitive decline and feeling like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's somebody I know. Then it became an issue where, what did she have to start taking over control of his assets because he no longer had the ability to, handle his finances,
right?
Which then became even bigger mess. So, as you're aging, it's good to kind of, one, if you have older parents that may need help with their finances, staying involved, or if you're, maybe an older client and bringing your kids in to kind of help out is another thing.
Yeah, that was going to actually be my other point is when you're getting to that point, try to have it done before you get to that cognitive decline, which obviously is difficult to see, but have some kind of trusted contact or power of attorney just available and keep them in the loop of what's going on with your finances, just in case you get to that point where you have that cognitive decline. Someone can step in and say, this doesn't look right. We shouldn't be wiring money to this person. You actually don't know them. Just a little bit of prior planning can prevent that.
Yeah, because once the money's gone, it's gone.
Gone.
And unfortunately, in certain situations, if you're the one directing it, you may not get that money back. So, it's a scary world out there, but there are definitely ways you can protect yourself, and that you should protect yourself, so you don't, end up in a position like that. So
yeah, and just keeping up to date with the trends. It's really easy just to look at some general research online, try to find best practices for protecting yourself as far as passwords, usernames, doing two-factor authentication, having some kind of text message to your phone with a verified passcode every time you log into one of your apps or your sites will help protect it. If you get an alert on your phone that someone is logging in to one of your accounts, make sure you're following up into that account. Change your password. If it's one of your financial accounts, make sure you're getting that information updated. Call the bank or whatever financial institution to let them know that you had an unauthorized login attempt. Those are some things to look out for.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, yeah, so hopefully we didn't scare anybody too much. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Any questions, as always, feel free to shoot them over. And looking forward to the next topic we go forward with. And we'll catch you guys soon.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone.